my summary learning about the lie detection techniques. For as long as human beings have deceived each other, people have tried to develop techniques for detecting deception and determining truth. These techniques have almost always included interviews and interrogations to try to see through deception and reveal what a deceiver will not freely admit. In the 20th century, lie detection took on scientific aspects with the development of techniques that use measures of physiological responses as indicators of deception. The best known of this is the polygraph. This technique, which relies on physiological measurements developed early in the century, has become for many in the U.S. law enforcement and intelligence communities, including counterintelligence officials and several agencies with whom we meet, the most valued method of identifying criminals, spies, and saboteurs when direct evidence is lacking. The instrument, the test, and examination. Polygraph testing combines interrogation with physiological measurements obtained using the polygraph or polygraph instrument, a piece of equipment that records physiological phenomena, typically respiration, heart rate, and blood pressure, and electrodermal response, electrical conductance of the skin surface. A polygraph examination includes a series of yes or no questions which the examinee responds while connected to sensors that transmit data on this physiological phenomena by wire to the instrument, which uses analog or digital technology to record the data. Because the original analog instruments record the data with several pins, writing lines on a movie sheet of paper, the record of physiological responses during the polygraph test is known as the polygraph chart. A variety of other technologies have been developed that purport to use physiological responses make inferences about deceptiveness. This range from brain scans to analysis of voice tremors. Some evidence relevant to these techniques is discussed in this report. Physiological phenomena. The physiological phenomena that the instrument measures and that the chart preserves are believed by polygraph practitioners to reveal deceptions. Practitioners do not claim that the instrument measures deception directly, rather, it is said to measure physiological responses that are believed to be stronger during acts of deception than at other times. According to some polygraph theories, a deceptive response to a question causes a reaction such as fear of detection or physiological arousal that change respiration rate, heart rate, blood pressure, or skin conductance relative to what they were before that questions was asked and relative to what they are after. Comparisons. Questions are asked pattern of physiological responses to questions relevant to the issues being investigated that are stronger than those responses to comparison questions indicates that the examinee may be deceptive. Polygraph test techniques. Although the polygraph instrument is the centerpiece of the technique, that ability of the polygraph test to detect deception also depends critically on other elements of the process. One, in this interpretation of the polygraph chart. Interpretations normally involves comparisons of physiological responses to relevant questions, questions about the issue that is the focus of the examination, and responses to the other questions that are asked for purpose of comparisons. Interpretations is often done by the examiner, who reviews the chart and may code it according to a standard protocol. People other than the examiner may also use such a protocol to code the chart. Chart interpretation can also be done by computer. Different polygraph techniques are defined in part by the ways the relevant and comparison questions are selected and placed in a polygraph test. A considerable portion of the medical research on polygraph testing focuses on validating particular techniques or comparing the performance of one technique with another. Three major classes of questioning techniques are in current use. The oldest of these irrelevant technique. The relevant questions are typical, very specific, and concern an event under investigation. For example, did you rob the bank on Friday? The irrelevant questions may be completely unrelated to the event and may offer little temptation to deceive. For example, is today Monday or are you in New Jersey? Stronger physiological responses to relevant than to irrelevant question are taken as indicative of deception. Although these techniques has numerous limitations from a scientific standpoint, Raskin and Hunt's 2002, it is used in criminal investigations and in some federal employee security screening programs, for instance, at the National Security Agency. Overall examination. A polygraph test and its result are a joint product of an interview or interrogation technique and psychological measurement or testing technique. It is misleading to characterize the examination as purely a psychological measurement technique. Polygraph examiners training implicitly recognize this point in several ways. It provides instructions on the kind of atmosphere that is to be created in the pre-test interview, advice on techniques for convincing examinees of the accuracy of the test, and offers guidance in different ways for different test formats. For selecting comparison questions, examiners are advised to control this important rule of interview conditions is also recognized in much of the practice and lore of polygraph testing. For example, it is widely and plausibly believed that polygraph results are different for friendly and unfriendly examination. Examiners preferred by the defense or by the prosecution in criminal cases. Assembly examiners are more relaxed with friendly examiners and less likely to have responses that indicate deception on the test. When interviewers are hostile or aggressive, examinees may be less relaxed and may produce different psychological responses than those they would produce in response to calm, friendly question. Such effects of the interview situation are common in other settings. For example, the widely noted phenomenon of white coat hypertension, in which blood pressure is believed to increase because of the context of medical examination. These situation effects represent a challenge to the validity of any physiological test that those not adequately reduce the influence of variation, the interview situation, and the physiological responses being measured or separate the effects of the situation from the effects of the condition, such as deceptions. The test is intended to measure. In polygraphy testing, the use of initial buffer items is intended to reduce situational effects on the examinees. Physiological responses comparison questions are also used to separate situation effects from the effects of deception by statistical means. Whether these procedures in fact have the desired effects is an empirical question which is explored in this book, The Lie Detection Mystique. In order to frame a scientific discussions about the polygraph, we consider the role of this method of detecting deception in American culture and compare it with methods of detecting deception that have been accepted in other cultures. The polygraph, perhaps more than any other apparently human interrogation techniques, arouse strong emotions. There is a mystique surrounding the polygraph that may account for much of its usefulness. That is a culturally shared belief that The polygraph device is nearly infallible. Practitioners believe that criminals sometimes prefer to admit their crimes, and the potential spies sometimes avoid certain job positions rather than face a polygraph examination, which they expect will reveal the truth about them. The mistake shows in other way when people accused of crimes voluntarily submit to polygraph test and publicize passing results because they are believe a polygraph test can offer credibility that they cannot get otherwise in popular culture and media. The polygraph device is often represented as a magic mind reading machine. These facts reflected that widespread mistake or belief that the polygraph test is highly valid techniques for detecting deception, despite the continuing lack of consensus scientific community about the validity of polygraph testing. Scientific issues, detecting deceptions and eliciting truth. For a criminal investigator or a counterintelligence officer, detecting deceptions and eliciting truth are opposite sides of the same coin. It does not matter whether deception is detected in an interview with psychological responses or whether truth is elicited in the form of an admission or revealed by a combination of psychological responses and further interrogation and investigation. Such distinctions are not made in official reports on polygraph screening programs. What matters most to investigators and is reported to Congress are the number of examinees who were ultimately cleared, the numbered subject versus personnel actions, and security violations revealed. From a scientific standpoint, however, detecting deception and revealing truth are two distinct purposes of polygraph examinations or any other technique for the psychological detection of deception. The polygraph test is advocated as an accurate psychological indicator of deception. The polygraph examination, which includes the test and the interrogation surrounding it, is a tool for revealing truth. Purposes of polygraph testing. As we note as the beginning of this chapter, polygraph testing and interviewing are used for three main purposes: event-specific investigation, employee screening, and employment or pre-clearance screening. These different purposes are reflected in different kinds of questions that are asked in polygraph tests. For an event-specific investigations, the polygraph is used to investigate a specific incident, such a crime or a specific act of sabotage or espionage. In this case, it is possible to ask relevant questions that are highly specific, such as, did you plant the bomb that exploded at location X on June 12? Or was the murder committed with a knife? Relevant questions like these are highly specific to a known event about which a guilty person may have a strong motive to lie or to conceal information. Context of polygraph test. Polygraph examinations are not the only source of information used to determine an examinee's truthfulness or deceptiveness. In event-specific investigations, a variety of techniques of a criminal or security investigation are used, and it is often this that lead to the selection of the individuals. For polygraph testing in pre-employment screening, employment questionnaires and interviews, as well as background checks, may supplement information from polygraph test. In employee screening, periodic or occasional polygraph examinations supplemented by interviews and investigations, especially if the polygraph test result is inconclusive or shows a significant response that remains unexplained. In short, information from polygraph examination may be combined in many ways with information from other sources in judging truthfulness or deception. Policy decisions on the use of the polygraph must be therefore considered not only the information that can be gained from the polygraph alone, but also the value it may add to what can be learned from other valuable investigation techniques. Furthermore, besides the quantitative value of polygraph information, the polygraph test may be influenced or be affected by other forms or investigations in known and unknown ways. For example, evidence about crime may be identify certain suspects who are then give a polygraph test, or polygraph test result may lead an ongoing investigations to focus on one person and turn away from others. Such interactions can make it difficult to separate the effects of the polygraph test from those of concurrent investigating methods. These are all my summary learnings.